Welcome, everybody. I'm Maury Weinstein, president and co-founder of SystemSource. We're talking today about 12 cybersecurity myths putting organizations at risk. There's enough challenge in security where if we put more barriers in place, of course, it makes the challenge that much bigger. We're here today to remove some of those challenges. As managers, we know that removing these challenges help us manage our staffs and make progress more quickly. That's the goals of today's event. We hope you're enjoying your pizza. Pizza delivery is a bit of an art, bit of a science. If you haven't received your pizza, please check your front door or reception desk. Sometimes it's the same place. And then contact Julie at jdellinger@syssource.com. Thanks, Julie, for putting together today's event. And during the webinar, we'll be in presentation mode. You're welcome to view the webinar in full screen mode because there'll be some graphs and data being shown. And feel free to submit questions in the chat or the questions windows, including telling us what you'd like to learn today. I do have the notes from your registrations. If you typed in notes as to what you'd like to learn today in our session, I do have those notes already. I thought I'd go to commercial for about 20 seconds and then get right into the meat of our presentation. Many clients come to us to help us mature their IT and audiovisual operations. In the upper right-hand corner, we use our training center to do that, uh, to increase productivity among staff. We train about 600 people a month and have been doing so since 1983. We've trained over 300,000 people in the Baltimore area. Today, of course, much of our work is being done virtually in private sessions or and including our AI courses. We trained 1,082 people in AI last year. In presentation systems, this is where we keep our folks, about a dozen people doing auditorium building, digital signage, Teams rooms, huddle rooms. All of that is done within the constraints of our presentations work. Consulting is where we keep our heavy hitters. These folks average 30 years of tenure with SystemSource. They handle all of our IT project work, including cloud migrations, security assessments. Cloud services is code word for our data center. We've been running a data center in Hunt Valley since 1995, but much of our current work is being done at AWS and Azure. Service and support can be done two different directions. One is reactively, when you call us when it all falls apart, and the other is proactively, using our managed services operations. Nearly all of our work is done on the proactive side these days. If we maintain efficiently enough, there may be money left over in the budget to refresh your environment. We do use our configuration center and warehouse here in Hunt Valley to do that work. That's System Source today, and if on behalf of the 65 of us, we say welcome, and I hope you'll enjoy the museum sometime. We have a large computer museum. Arriving yesterday is a replica, oddly enough, of the computer screens in the original Batman videos, Batman movies, Batman TV show. So we run to the esoteric here, but we do have the Apple One and about 1,000 other items on display. We hope you'll join us for a museum source tour sometime. Our management event series, you may be joining us for the first time today, but it is a long series. We go into managed services. We talk about security lessons from Verizon's report, which we'll actually spend some time on today. We'll talk about insourcing, outsourcing. We'll talk about motivating and retaining IT staff. These are all events in our management event series. Just keep an eye on your email screen or the front of our webpage for upcoming webinars. Speaking of upcoming webinars, they are in front of you. These are successfully migrating to Microsoft Azure Cloud, turning 365 Copilot into real workflows. That probably will be the big one of the month, and how to delay Microsoft's July price increase. I'll be doing that one myself if you're worried about Microsoft's July price increases, which are substantial for most licensing. Join us for that session on May 7th. The agenda today is simple and a single one. It is the 12 cybersecurity myths putting organizations at risk. Let's start counting them down. Number one, they're in no particular order. Number one myth is my organization's security needs are hard to pin down. That is a myth that we just don't share. Here's why. Now, if you're following only number one up top on the screen, regulatory or other external direction, if you're following direction only from your board of directors, from your insurance company, from your industry association, government regulations, then that myth may be correct, where organization needs are hard to pin down from a security point of view. However, if you're seeking research driven direction to optimize security, which means you're maximizing security at lowest cost, no one size fits all approach, which is generally what you find up here, up top, where you're preventing my pet peeve, which is useless spending, that is a fairly easy project. Now, I say easy, of course, nothing's easy. It's 109 pages this year. It's called the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report. It's the DBAR report. We follow this report as our playbook. This is our security playbook that we follow, partly because Verizon is a real high integrity data organization, as far as we can tell, at least from this report's point of view. And most of the data from our manufacturers appears to be made up or subject to interpretation. So we use the Verizon report as our playbook for security work. And seemingly, and we shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back because that's inappropriate, but at least among our dozens and dozens of managed customers, they seem to be staying safe within the work that we do from our playbook. Now, the Verizon Data Breach Report, if you're unfamiliar with it, comes out each year, and it is the 2025 is the latest. 2026 will be here in a couple months. So some of the work is a little dated, but we have to work from some playbook. We can't just throw our hands up in the air. About 100 organizations contribute, everyone from Akamai to Zscaler, including Secret Service and Symantec and various other organizations contribute. The contributions are threats, vulnerabilities, and actions. The two key words are in red: incidents and data breaches. Incidents is where penetration has been proven. Data breaches is a subset of incidents where data has been proven to be lost. Data breaches used to be about 5% of incidents. Now you can see it's over 50. So that's a big trend and change over the years. It is categorized by 9 industries. So if you view our Verizon replay or the upcoming Verizon webinar, we'll cover most of the industries, at least those that are represented among the registrants for the webinar, using your NAICS code. But for today, we're just going to examine the generic one, the overall picture. The report's in its 18th year. It is worldwide, 139 countries. Let's take a look who we're fighting against. If we're battling to secure our organizations, and I don't know of any better way of quantifying it or describing it, we probably ought to know who the enemy is. And the enemy at a 90% level is organized crime. Organized crime is not the mafia. Organized crime is a bad guy with a plan. The only good news here is our plan just has to be better than his or her plan. And that's what we're talking about. And that's why we're meeting today and through all of our webinars and all of our service through our customers. So it's a bad guy with a plan. The good news is our plan just has to be better. Let's take a look. So among professional services breach categories, now professional services is not the generic category. It is for certain types of firm. Professional services includes law firms, engineering firms, accounting firms. So I picked this one at random. I could have picked any of the other 8 or 10 or 11 or 12 of these that are by industry. We'll cover them all or most of them in our Verizon Data Breach Report webinars coming up. So in this category, and not all of you are in this category, certainly Brian, you're in this category, and there are others that are attending today. Um, there are 3 top breach patterns. Remember, the word breach means the data is proven to be lost, so that's a bad category, although incidents is not a good category, but breach is worse. If we get good at these 3 categories, we'll have prevented 91% of breaches. Do you see where 80/20 rule, 90/10 rule is a rule that we just love here at System Source because it enables us to focus our expense and time in preventing situations. Now, the word if is a big word. System intrusion is number 1. These are in order. Number 2 is social engineering. Number 3 is basic web app attacks. We're not going to go through the detail on each of these today. That's part of the Verizon webinar that we put on, and I think you'll see another run replay of that shortly. But if we get good at these, we're preventing 91% of breaches. So the whole myth that says organization security needs are hard to pin down, that may not be true. Now we're still covering a lot of ground here, although, for example, social engineering is a achievable situation. Social engineering is often achievable if you're using the know before software or something similar to do your phishing campaigns and phishing tests and phishing training. Often these categories are that we can knock down this category and move on to the other ones just by installing know before and putting best practices to work. I should note that know before is kind of interesting package in that if you don't put best practices to work, it actually doesn't do very much. So best practices are very important. We've written them down. We have actually a small consulting packaging that we do in case your know before or similar packages are not performing at your industry average or better. I'll show you some numbers in a moment to back that up. So the myth one says organization security needs hard to pin down. I think we can refute that because at least at 91%, we know what they're going to be in the professional services sector. There are other sectors that are sitting at 80%, but even the 80-20 rule is so much better than investing randomly or spending time in random priorities. Number two, required security expenses are unpredictable. Turns out that's not true. Here's why. Here's how we know that. Our managed services operations is all about keeping our customers productive and safe. And the odd part is it seems to be working. I'll show you some numbers to back that up in just a moment. Our managed services are at a fixed price for easy budgeting. We had no idea how important that is to CFOs until we jumped into the managed services business about 17 years ago. You pay only for systems in use, and even if you're doing some moves, adds, and changes, there's an allowance for you so that we're not nickel and diming you based on extra charges each month. So because we're able to offer this as a fixed price, I think we can refute the myth that says security expenses are unpredictable. Here's one more chart that backs that up. With each managed service client, we discuss with you, or each security assessment if you're not a managed client, we discuss your security risk comfort level. Every organization has a different level of risk comfort. And the first thing we ought to figure out is what that is. It varies from, well, risk doesn't make any difference to me. Well, that's one thing. I insure for it. Some people say, well, okay, fine, but that could end up with in a bad situation. All the way up to the Vanguards and Fidelities of the world. Fidelity meaning the Fidelity investment folks. And if you ever walk into the Fidelity investment office in Towson, which I do once every 3 years just to say hello, you'll see that they work at about half speed. They're very highly trained and they're very professional. But because their security risk comfort level is turned up to the max, that is, they have lots of security procedures in place. Of course, you would be doing the same thing if you were managing $7 trillion of other people's money. So a discussion of security risk comfort level using this chart or something similar is absolutely important to beginning this process. The reason I put this here is that the yellow items, which is most of them, are actually in scope, assuming you have Microsoft Business Premium or better licensing, which most people do, are in scope for our managed services. There are some out of scope items. A few of them are expensive. We'll get into the expense of security under myth number 3, which is coming up next. So the myth that says security expenses are unpredictable, it appears that we have a comprehensive set of services depending on your risk comfort level, and it's at a fixed price. Those two together will refute the myth that says unpredictable. Number 3, security is expensive. Well, there's some truth to that, but there's so many items on the security risk comfort level chart at less than $1 a month per user that there's plenty of evidence to refute the myth that says security has to be expensive. Now, there are some expensive items, of course, if you're investing in SIMs and let's see, there's a few others here, I suppose, that are serious money. If you're doing penetration testing, there's sometimes some serious money there. DDoS protection is expensive, but other than those, much of this is in scope, is under $1 per month per user or inexpensive. The green ones I've designated as under $1 a month per user. Now you can debate whether they are or whether manpower time is included and so on, but many of these items are inexpensive, nearly zero on a monthly per user basis. So I would suggest that security is expensive might be a myth that might be holding us back. There's some truth in it as we get into SIMs and DDoS protection and penetration testing. But other than that, a lot of this is small dollars. Number four, security opposes user sat and productivity. This is a popular myth. It turns out that our data does not support this. So let's take you behind the scenes into our internal data. We measure productivity among our customers by measuring tickets per workstation per business day. That's our metric. And one of our jobs, besides keeping our customers safe from the hackers, from the enemy, is to improve staff productivity. Now, it's easier to say improving staff productivity than doing so. But this is the graph that we sat around the big conference table here at System Source to create. And this data, this particular data set, or at least the graph data set, is from January 2016. So in the 121-month period since then, we've been able to drop the ticket count per workstation per business day by 39%. Now, the world has thrown everything at us and at our industry, including work from home, including return from work from home, including all the Windows 10 to 11 migrations, which brings this number up. Our job is to bring it back down again. That's our role in our managed services operations. Now, if the ticket per workstation per business day is dropping, you would think that people, your employees, are spending less time in IT. And if they're spending less time in IT, hopefully that means there's more time to be spent in other priorities in your organization. So, the fourth myth that says security opposes user sat and productivity appears to be refuted by this graph. Now, I should note that all the proactive tickets that we handle proactively and the reactive tickets that our customers put in are in this number. So there's nothing left out. That handles the productivity side of the myth. Let's look at the satisfaction side. You would think that security, because the need appears to be rising, would be driving down customer sat as measured by end users. Turns out the data doesn't support that. This is our internal customer sat data from our managed services operations. And if you're ever not sleeping at night, you can actually see it on our webpage. This word cloud is updated in real time. This is just a snapshot. I can see it was taken during Christmas. Updated in real time. It is the good, the bad, the ugly. We live and die based on customer sat. It is unedited and, as I noted, in real time. It is on our webpage without password, and it is also in the front of our lobby. So the whole myth that says security opposes user sat appears to be refuted by this data. So I don't want that myth to hold us back from doing the important work that we need to do to secure our organizations every day. Myth number five, security risk is an IT problem. Let's examine that. Well, we see through our tickets that lots of people are asking about security risks in your organizations. That would be investors, that would be prospects, that would be mergers and acquisition folks, that would be donors for your nonprofits. We have quite a few nonprofits on today's webinar. So by the fact that they're asking for this, and there are new accounts that are actually waiting for responses before they place business with you. Um, the fact that they're asking tells me that this risk, this myth, is not really true. It's not only an IT problem, it's across the organization. So we've got to solve these security risks. We've got to be able to spread the word to our investors, prospects, M&A folks, and donors, new customers, that would be prospects right here in the middle, are asking questions. So this is not solely an IT problem. The faster we get out of that myth, the better off we are. That this is a cross department, this is an organization wide effort, not just an IT effort. Myth number number six, all security tasks are either outsourced or insourced. Turns out that that myth is an important one to overcome. We use the Gartner Run, Grow, Transform model to help blow that myth. Let's take a harder look at this model. Gartner, as you know, is the grandfather of research in the IT area. So Gartner says that different IT tasks should be shown differently on this chart. This chart has an axis of business knowledge on the left-hand side, that's the y-axis, and the x-axis talks about competitive advantage. So let's throw up some examples. Let's talk about checking backups. I'm just picking them at random. Checking backups doesn't give you much competitive advantage. Everyone should be doing it. And it also doesn't require a tremendous amount of knowledge. I don't have to be intimate with your organization to check your backups or to configure your 365 properly or to deliver your phishing campaigns properly. So those activities are down here in the bottom left-hand corner of Gartner's Run, Grow, and Transform model. What's on the upper right-hand corner? Let's say that you hired us or somebody to do some custom dashboard work or to put in a new ERP system. Those are in the upper right-hand corner of this quadrant. It gives you tremendous competitive advantage if it's done properly, and it requires tremendous business knowledge, intimate knowledge of your environment to do that work. Do you see where not all IT tasks are created equal? This is really important. It's actually the most requested slide from all of our slides too. So Gardner overlays the Run, Grow, Transform model and says these tasks up here in the upper right-hand corner, right, the ERP systems, the new dashboards, business intelligence work, you own those. Those are yours. But the ones in the bottom left-hand corner, which involves a lot of our managed services work, Gartner says you outsource those. The ones in the middle, which really help our organizations grow at standard industry growth rates, 10% or whatever, there's a partnering going on. Sometimes you do it, sometimes we do it. That's where we do a lot of our project work. So that's the Run, Grow, and Transform model. Hopefully that helps you understand more about myth number 6, where all security tasks are either insourced or outsourced. Turns out that Gartner says the combination is important based on the chart that you saw. There's actually more to this chart than meets the eye. Gardner has a good insight into what's going on. It turns out that a lot of the dollars in IT are in the run area. That's where a lot of the salaries are tied up, a lot of the people, a lot of the tool sets, but that management's most interested up here in the upper right-hand corner. That dichotomy makes our jobs, your jobs and my jobs even harder because much of the visibility is in the upper right-hand corner, but much of the dollars and activity are tied up in the lower left-hand corner. That increases the stress of our work together. Number 7, social engineering risk reduction is difficult. I know that some customers see that, and in some situations, this myth is true. It doesn't have to be true, but some customers are seeing a difficulty here. So let's go into the data. So because we don't believe in any of our manufacturers' data, we created our own data set for using know before. This is the fish prone percentage. You know that fish prone percentage means the percentage of folks who, upon getting a test email, clicks on the links or the attachments or both. This data set shows that most customers, or at least this customer, this is a real data set, start around 20%. Most people start around 20, 23%. Once they turn know before on, the problem, the fish prone percentage drops into the noise and stays there. Now, anytime you change the phishing templates, the strength of phishing templates, anytime you have new hires, of course, the number pops up and it's our job and know before's job to bring it back down again. That's why you're seeing some uneven results here. Now, many of these results here at the end of the curve are actually, I think there's 17 weeks of zero right here. And there's more here, maybe 5 weeks of zero right there also. So maybe you found other things that you can spend $3 a month or $4 a month or whatever the know before price is. We do sell know before here, and get these kinds of results in this small time frame. But I don't know of many things. It's a bit of a miracle you're seeing in front of you. Now, not everyone achieves these results. It's unfortunate. There are some people who have created their own barriers against our best practices for which they're still seeing 7, 8, 9% numbers. The only problem with 7 or 8 or 9% numbers is, remember that hacker with a plan, our enemy? Well, their plan is better than your plan. That produces breaches and incidents. But if you're hanging down here at your industry average or less, that hacker will move on to somebody that's easier to phish and to hack. So that's the fish bone percentage using internal data. This is a real data set for a real customer. And I hope you'll find that useful in myth number 7, where social engineering um, risk reduction is actually not very difficult. Implementing these best practices, putting the few dollars a month for know before or whatever it costs in, um, there are some time required in those best practices. Managers have to be willing to discuss consistent phishing failures with their staff, but those are the kinds of ways we make inroads. We have a memo on best practices in for know before setup. If you need to be reset up, if your know before needs to be reset up because you're not getting consistent results below your industry average, we actually have a solution bundle for that. It's a few $1,000s to reset it up from scratch. Myth number 8, security is difficult to measure and communicate. Well, communication for me is usually the entire game, partly because I'm a technical person, but not that technical. So let's see how we do it. Measuring and communicating. First, we have to have performance reporting. This is just one little piece of our performance reporting, but an important one. This is a patch score. This happens to be the Microsoft patch score. We keep our Microsoft patch scores in the mid 90s. When our customers get a little scared because of some industry event, we take them to 100, but you know you can only do that for a few minutes until Microsoft dumps some more patches on you. Now, the reason we know that this is unheard of territory is because we measure our inbound clients into our managed services operations. At least historically, they're in the 35% or less range. Not pretty. If you're at 35% or less range, or you're not measuring at all, at least historically, you know that the hacker with a plan, their plan is better than your plan. And that's what leads to breaches and incidents. So measuring and communicating is actually not very difficult once you have them set up. I should note that some of our most recent managed customers are coming in with 75% scores. We had never seen that before. So Microsoft, I sense, is doing a better job. Most of our customers are coming in from other managed service providers. It's possible that other managed service providers are doing a better job, but not likely. I think that Microsoft's doing a better job of patching. But even at 75%, that's still a big range between there and 100. We like to keep our patch scores in the mid 90s and work very hard to do so. Another way to measure security results, security strokes, security steps, whatever you want to call that, is to create a dashboard. This is our security quick glance dashboard. And I guess it was quick glance when we only had 15 or 20 lines. There are 66 lines on this page. I only excerpt the first 15 or 20 just to reduce your eye strain. This dashboard helps us understand our position for two-factor authentication, for risky login alerts, for single sign-on, for automatic password rotation, which is so important, for Orca reports, and so on. This dashboard is presented each of our business reviews. Most of our clients have quarterly business reviews, so they see this each quarter. We slowly turn the client from red to yellow to green, and this is one of two dashboards we use to do this work. This one, of course, is security. The other one is infrastructure. There is a board version of this, so you can communicate that to upper management or board of directors just by selecting the ones that you want. And I have done that presentation personally, but you can do it also. So that is a very important, and to see the progress, to understand where you are in order to make progress, in order to prioritize, that's the goal of having a quick glance dashboard. This one's custom built. So number 8 myth, where security is difficult to measure and communicate, I'd suggest that's not true. And that the more we believe in that myth, the further behind we get. We've been running this quick glance dashboard for our managed clients for many years, a decade or more. Number 9, cyber insurance is a one-time per year effort. That's a myth that we've got to get over. Here's why. So one thing, of course, we're attesting to multi-factor authentication or other things depending on your insurance company. So because we're attesting to this, that means we have to keep it in place all year long. So new software, new users, new setup, new systems all have to have 2FA if you've attested to it throughout the year. So that's important. But even more important than that, I don't know, maybe not more important, but equally important, the fact that some insurance companies actually reduce your claims if you haven't patched in the proper time frames. So here's Chubb, for example. This text is copied directly from their policy, so there's no interpretation here. So they call it risk sharing. It's a funny way of calling it, but it's probably true. Risk sharing. So you take on progressively more risk if the vulnerability that caused the breach or incident that you're producing the claim for is not patched at 46 days, they dock you 50%. At 90 days, they dock you 75% of the claim. And these claims, can be multi-million dollar claims. So they give you what they call a grace period to patch. I don't have in today's presentation enough time to talk about the speed to patch that's been researched by Verizon, but these kinds of things have to be handled. You have to have a measurement on them because that claim disappears, is cut in half if the patch was not applied at 45 days. Callback verification is another area. Insurers require funds transfer policy even to write the insurance, never mind to pay the claim. 4 out of 5 insurers that I surveyed had callback verification requirements of some type. Callback verification, where a funds transfer request or change must be independently verified. You've got to have a policy that you've practiced, that you've distributed, that you can prove. Because there's been a lot of social engineering claims, of course, behind this, before the claim is paid or before the policy is written, depending on which company you're talking about. If you don't have a funds transfer policy, I actually have one I could lend you. Our insurance firm, Schoenfeld Insurance, through Judy Morrison, has lent us one that was created by some big law firm that reads pretty well. If you need that, just put it on today's evaluation. You want the fund transfer policy, I'd be happy to get that to you. That's myth number 9. Cyber insurance is a one-time per year effort. You can see that's really not true. We need to blow that myth pretty fast. Number 10, it's hard to make progress in IT security. Well, this one's a tough one to debate. Let's take a look at our internal data. So this is our fraudulent 365 logins. You know them as business email compromises, BECs. Our job is to bring this number down. Now, we can only do it with your help, and many of our customers are practicing better phishing practices, better orientation, better licensing. So there's lots of things going on here. I'm not patting our guys on the back, but you can see the shape of the line is going down. So to read this, you can see in Q1 2021 there were 2 fraudulent logins among tens of thousands of licenses that we're managing. That number has decreased over time. We had a rough quarter here. This actually is fairly typical when we bring on a new large account into our managed services operations. Those folks take a while to clean up their act, and we saw that here. There were 6 in that quarter. But the long-term linear average is still moving downwards, so it's something we can be proud of, and our customers can be proud of, because remember, it's a joint effort. We should see that number wind down as Q2 comes around into this data set. This is our internal data of fraudulent logins. So this myth that says um, it's hard to progress, well, I think you can blow that myth by ignoring that final quarter, because we've got data to support that. There's other data support also, some interesting trends. There's a couple more data slides coming up. One is that the average ransomware is actually declining. 150K has been the number for prior year. 2025, 115. There's actually a reason for that. The reason is that less people are paying ransoms. So in 2022, Verizon says about half of ransomware victims paid. In 2023, 54% did not pay, and in 2024, 64% did not pay. Maybe better backup practices, better restoration practices, all kinds of reasons. So for that reason, Verizon says the data seems to support it. The average ransomware is declining. I think it's actually the median right there in the middle is declining. So there is some good news in today's deck, and there is some thoughts behind refuting the myth that says it's hard to progress our IT security. Got a couple charts that are showing that we can progress. Here's the third one that at least says it's not getting any worse. Remember, we talked about BECs, business email compromises, where the bad guys are in our systems, which they shouldn't be. Some of them are persistent, some of them are reading our emails, some of them are sending emails from our organizations, all of which is no good. Those email compromises are costing about 50,000 each. The good news is in 2024 data, 2025 data, that number has not increased, stays at 50,000. The bad news is our cyber insurance that you and I have generally cap these at 250,000 a year. Many of you have policies that cap social engineering claims at 100,000. It's actually fairly hard to buy social engineering coverage above 250 unless you're a very major company. What that tells us is that if you have more than five $50,000 claims, of course, you're uninsured. Now, you could sort of expect that because you're seeing a lot of these yourselves, and the insurance companies are smart people. They're not dying to pay claims on a popular area. So that's number 10 myth. It's hard to progress IT security. There's one more chart that might show you some hope and that we can progress this and that we can blow this myth number 10. This chart tells us that our edge um, known exploited vulnerabilities, right, KEVs, on our edge devices, which are largely firewalls and VPNs, are being remediated at a much higher rate than all CVEs, common vulnerability exploits. So only 9% Verizon says are being remediated on the left-hand side. But once we get to the edge, known exploited vulnerabilities, 53% are. So you are seeing some progress here. And a special note, of course, without looking at the whole Verizon report, all 109 pages, edge devices are under attack at a much higher rate than prior year. That's not really the content for today's presentation, but the myth that says it's hard to progress IT security, we are seeing some evidence with lower ransom, with better phishing results, with more attention to edge devices, which are receiving more attention, according to the Verizon report, 53% remediated for edge devices, where only 9% for all. So that's a refute on myth number 10. Number 11 coming up. AI is driving security risks. This one's a little controversial. And of course, it's moving very fast. Remember, Verizon data is getting a little bit old in the tooth, long in the tooth, because it was issued maybe about 10 months ago. We'll see an update in early summer. So let's take a look at the data. The data shows that the percentage of AI assisted malicious emails is increasing. In fact, it's doubling. There's your headline right there. It's doubling over a period of 3 years. However, the popularity of AI occurred largely starting at the end of 2022. That's the green line when ChatGPT was released to the public and so on. So you would think that if the bad guys were using AI to construct their malicious emails, the curve would look something like this, but it doesn't. The curve is a line. So the percentage of AI assisted malicious emails over time does not appear to be accelerating. That tells us that AI may or may not be needed. Some of the hackers are speaking English better. Some of them are constructing better emails all by themselves. They don't need AI. They're getting our money anyway. So it doesn't appear that AI is driving this malicious email creation. However, now that I'm saying that myth might be blown, there's plenty of counter examples. And of course, there's an update, around the corner on AI discovering new vulnerabilities. We're seeing some acceleration of vulnerability patching from the Microsofts and the Cisco's and the whomever, but it's not yet a real deluge. It may become one because AI is finding these bugs at a tremendous rate. Whether they're serious or not, or whether they're confirmed, that's something that the Cisco's of the world have to figure out. But we haven't seen the deluge quite yet. It's increasing. However, there is a danger area that for which the myth is actually true. Here goes. So about 15% of employees routinely access Gen AI systems on their corporate devices. Routinely means once every 15 days. Okay, who cares? It's 15%. This is according to the Verizon report from 2025. However, here's the trouble. 72% of those 15%, those employees routinely accessing Gen AI systems on their corporate devices, 72% were using a non-corporate email or had other identification problems. You know that if you don't use your corporate email, for example, with Copilot, then Copilot might be ingesting your files and your prompts and your data into the model. That's a data leakage that is real. So this myth that says AI is driving security risks, there is some truth in that, and that we've got to be very careful in educating our staffs, which is why we're spending so much time in the learning center educating our customers on appropriate AI use. 72% of the folks that routinely accessing Gen AI systems on their corporate devices were using non-corporate email as their identifier. You know that does not provide you the data lock, and that the model may be ingesting your sensitive data for that situation. That's a very real issue for which the myth is true. Number 12, last one. My antivirus or whatever is enough to reduce risks. Let's take a look at the data behind that. Verizon shows us the various steps in breaches. So this is the system intrusion steps. Remember, we saw three different breach patterns. System intrusion is the number one breach pattern in most industries, including professional services, which is which is the data you saw on the screen a few minutes ago. So here are the steps. If we're good enough to make sure that we can stop hackers against our servers, right? That's how you read that, hack against servers, or unknown against servers, or unknown against users, or whatever, social engineering against people. If our systems are good enough, are not good enough to prevent that, then breach escalation takes place. And now we need another set of layers of security. Malware against servers, hacking against servers, malware against users. Do you see where no one layer is enough? So the myth that says my antivirus or whatever layer, single layer, or even two layers, is enough to reduce risk is just not true. It's unfortunate, but it's not true. So we got to have layers in place. Things like Threat Locker, things like Arctic Wolf, SIMs. That's just two that I could mention, but there's lots more that we could create layers out of. And if we don't catch the people during breach escalation, we've got to catch them over here. Do you see where multiple layers are needed? Many layers are needed. Now, this is just system intrusion breaches. I didn't make any effort to capture social engineering or any of the other levels that come up in the breach categories that you saw earlier, constituting 91% of breaches. Hopefully that um, graph, that chart opened your eyes just like it did for me as to the fact that layers are needed. I've asked Michelle Robinson, who runs our learning center, to create some training offers. These are security training offers, but there's lots of AI going on in our learning center. You can pull up AI courses. There's dozens and dozens of them. About 20 of them we produce here locally. Those are the ones that are Copilot and ChatGPT as they relate to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and so on. We have time for questions. Anything you've got on your mind? Maybe you've tried some of these things. Maybe some of these myths are truer than I think they are. Don't hesitate to put your thoughts in the chat box or questions. I have both of them boxes open in front of me. But if you tried any of them that have worked for you or not worked for you, or anything you'd like to share, we'd love to. We're all ears. I'm going to start with the questions that you used when you registered. I'll be using first names only to protect confidentiality. Brett, welcome today. You asked about latest cybersecurity trends, patterns by threat actors. One way to answer that, there are lots of ways to answer that, but one way is to go back to the Verizon report. You're in the warehousing or manufacturing area, so this particular chart wouldn't be directly relevant. Remember, this is professional services firms, but I probably have a chart for your industry. You're welcome to contact me or note that on your evaluation today, and I can always talk further with you as to what the top three patterns are in your sector. No use working on things that are important to healthcare institutions, financial firms, insurance firms, because if the data is available for your industry, and Verizon doesn't have data for every industry, but it's available for your industry, we might as well use it so we can get focused on this 91% or 80% or 73% or whatever your industry numbers are. Welcome, Brett. Thanks for joining us today. Scott, welcome. Because of your title, I'm sure you've got a lot of good experience. Security learnings and trends. Hopefully you saw some of that here today. Verizon report's especially important because it is an 18-year-old report. While the data is not perfect, no data is, it does give us the ability to trend. Your experience would be helpful. Parker, thanks. How would you recommend boosting usage of training in know before? Let me open up your thought. How would you recommend boosting the usage of training in know before? Our organization can barely get 50% completion. We recently put up posters, and that's a good idea, and send out emails, but it hasn't had much of an impact as we'd like to. Okay, so let's hit your question hard. 50% completion is your thought. Now, when you say 50% completion, you're probably referring to the training programs. These training programs could happen in one of two ways or a thousand ways. One of two ways are popular. One is on new hires, the other is annual training, and the third one is remedial training. Remedial training means you click that email and you have to take remedial training. That remedial training could actually change for people who clicked once, clicked twice, clicked three times, and the hardcore folks that clicked four times or more. Often we have training campaigns set up for each of those areas. So you'll have to tell me which one of those training programs is not working for you. But here's the secret and the best practice for any of those. Management needs to be notified if a training program is not completed by the due date. In the world of know before, that's actually fairly easy to set up. If management is unwilling to walk over to an employee and tap him or her on the shoulder and say it's time to complete your 15-minute training program or 45 or 30 or whatever you've prescribed, then you're right. You'll never get above 50%. But if managers are willing to walk over and tap a person on the shoulder and say it's time, and for the hardcore folks to tap a person on the shoulder and say, you are endangering our firm, very simply, without judgment, without commotion, without drama, we find those messages very, very effective. And we see lots of folks with 100% completion. Hopefully there's something there that you can lock into, Parker. I'm glad you came today. But this one is solvable. There are a few organizations that tell us that phishing is too intrusive, that having difficult conversations with employees about security are, are opposite their culture. Those organizations are very difficult to make security inroads on, and I respect that. But among other organizations that want to manage their folks, that don't want to have hard conversations with brand new employees week one as to why they're buying Apple gift cards, this issue is solvable. Be happy to talk to you one on one if it's helpful to you, Parker. Moving on to others that put in um, discussion points. Thank you, Parker. You also talked about cyber risk management and how to reduce security risks for organizations. I hope you saw something today in that area. Joe, welcome. You asked about more knowledge about security. I hope you'll find something in today's deck that increased your knowledge. Our most knowledgeable customers are our best clients. That's really the whole theory behind our webinar program, our management series, is educated clients produce better project outcomes, produce lower risk, higher efficiency, are more fun to work with, whatever you want to call it. So that's really the thought behind our webinar series. I'm going to be quiet for 10 seconds so that you can put your thoughts in the chat box or the Q&A box, either way. If there are no other questions for today, I'm going to hang on for just about 15 seconds in case you've got some thoughts that haven't made it into one of the boxes. But I'll return the 9 minutes left in today's hour, and I appreciate your time very, very much. Thanks. Thanks again for joining us. There'll be an evaluation sent later on today with a copy of the deck and so on, and the recording too. We appreciate your time, and hopefully everyone have a good day.